something that has been talked about in the week is the cost of our health department. Let's move on to that now, because we have obviously a new health minister, David Ashford. He's come forward. He's looked very enthusiastic about the job. He's spoken in Tynwald. He says, obviously, that things need to be done. But he says he's not going to be pushed into what he regards as knee-jerk reactions just days after he was approached. This was when he was talking about free prescriptions possibly being on offer, which he said would cost his department about $800,000.
Currently, prescription charges themselves pull in roughly £620,000. And then there's the prepaid certificates, which adds up to further income of $120,000. And I know in the past the people have said, well, what about the administration of prescriptions, etc. The analysis by the department shows that costs around about $16,000. I'm sure it would be one of the most popular policies any health minister's come out with for years. But I think I said at the very first day I was appointed, we're not going to make knee-jerk decisions, and that's in both ways, both unpopular decisions and popular decisions.
Let's ask my panel here, as far as the health department is concerned, where do we go from here? We've got another review. People say a review. We've had them before. Will it get us anywhere, Lawrie Hooper?
I honestly don't think it will. One of the key issues that I find with this review is actually the terms of reference that was set out by the Treasury Minister in his opening remarks, and one of the three of those terms of reference actually dealt with whether or not healthcare should remain free or largely free at the point of use. And to my mind, that's a principle that you should establish right at the outset and say, no, we like our NHS to be free at the point of use. I don't want to have to produce a credit card when I turn up for a hospital appointment. So why on earth are we asking this review to explore that as a potential option? To my mind, it's looking in the wrong place. It's looking at exactly the wrong thing. So how are we going to get the right outcome?
Yes, Alfred Cannon, and I quote here, says he believes the Manx public would support paying for certain healthcare provisions. He says all options are on the table, including contracting out or charging for certain functions. Chris Robertshaw.
Well, you won't be surprised, and Lawrie won't be surprised to hear that I actually don't agree with him. I fully supported Alf Cannon in his motion. And what he's trying to do is to go back to first principles, and it's something I've encouraged for a long time. And I'm delighted now that we're moving forward with it. And it's this. Instead of acting incrementally on small issues, which we've been doing thus far, and progressively upsetting the electorate, what Alf's trying to do here is to say, OK, there are big major trends occurring now in terms of our demography. And this is going to significantly impact on the future cost of health. And using the comparison escalation costs in the UK and making them pro rata, Alf's assessment was that actually by a given date, I think it was 2023, etc., we should be somewhere in the region of spending £60 million more than we otherwise might expect to. Now that sharpens the mind, and it makes you realise the degree of challenge that we're facing. So let's stop paddling around in the shallows here.
That's if we just continue doing what we're doing at the moment, the way we're doing it.
Yes, and the demography changes in the way we expect it to. So there's some really, really serious issues to face here. And I congratulate him for trying to do it. So, yeah, issues about prescription charges and incidental issues as we go along, of course, are important, but the big issue is what on earth are we going to do to make sure that we protect our health service and make it better for the future. It's not going to be achieved just on the say-so of the next minister. I mean, we've seen health ministers change, almost as fast as we change our socks.
I think we had 4 in the Tynwald chamber, either present or past.
Precisely. And the idea of sacking a minister and somehow everything's better and the next one's going to get it right is frankly nonsense. What we have to do is make sure that the review is in 2 parts. The first part is, where are the costs going to go on current projections? And they'll be pretty scary. Given that that's the case, what have we got to do to protect our health service and, if necessary, start incurring costs on the periphery? I believe that when we really face the music, it'll sharpen minds and it'll be a bit of a bucket of cold water.
Should people start thinking about, if they're young and just going into jobs, about providing their own health provision or putting money aside to provide themselves? Could we be drawn into that position?
Well, I hope not. Because way before that is the issue of where young people are going to be in terms of their future pensions. But let's deal with where we think the cost of health is going to go and how we're going to resolve it, and have a very grown-up discussion on the Isle of Man, and try to build a set of policies around it. We're not really sure where we're going. The things we have to do is establish what we think the additional costs are going to be, what sort of structure out of that understanding is going to develop the right policies, and then make sure we have the right people in place to deliver them. We're not there. We've been playing with it for a long time, and it's got to stop.
Interestingly, in the report that was chaired by Juan Watterson, of course, they said we don't know what the size of the problem is because we don't quite know what the services that are supposed to be provided for.
Well, that's the point.
That would seem the basic mark you set off from.
But that's where we haven't been going. We've been trying to deal with it on an incremental basis, as how somehow an idea that somebody has along the way will solve the problem. No, it won't. And we have to go back to first principles, quite fundamental and structural issues relating to how our hospital's going to work, how regional services are going to be delivered. It goes on and on.